If the earthy yellow halo shimmering on the surface of the behemoth statue was a defensive measure granted by a divine ability, then this divine ability was truly extraordinary. One must know that although Duan Lingtian's sword strike just now wasn't at full strength, it was comparable to the full power blow of an ordinary peak middle Saint Realm martial cultivator. And yet, such a strike was actually blocked by a behemoth statue at the late Saint Realm. Of course, Duan Lingtian also noticed that while the behemoth statue had blocked his attack, the earthy yellow halo on its surface had completely dimmed. Its body also seemed to become much more cumbersome in that instant, its speed slowing down. It seems that although the divine ability it uses is powerful, it also consumes a vast amount of energy. Blocking my sword just now nearly exhausted its power. It is now at the end of its rope. With this thought, Duan Lingtian flicked his hand, and the golden light sword swept out once more. This time, it directly ground the behemoth statue's head into pieces. Boom! With its head shattered, the massive behemoth statue crashed to the ground, completely silenced. However, the moment the behemoth statue fell, Duan Lingtian noticed another surge of movement in the void realm. A majestic and heavy aura instantly filled this floor of the tower, giving him a sense of ancient desolation. That is, soon, Duan Lingtian's gaze fell upon the patch of void realm where the aura was emanating from. A crack seemed to appear in the void realm, and within that crack, a massive stone tablet appeared out of thin air. The stone tablet crashed down onto the floor, making the entire tower tremble several times. The stone tablet stood there, exuding an aura of ancient desolation, as if telling everything around it that it had existed for a very long time. 6 Harmony's golden body. This is a divine ability. When Duan Lingtian's divine sense tried to probe the stone tablet, he found a piece of information being fed back from within it. Immediately, Duan Lingtian realized that this tower indeed contained a divine ability relic, and this stone tablet was one of the many divine ability relics within the sacred martial secret realm. So everything I just experienced was a trial to obtain it. The defensive divine ability mastered by that final behemoth statue was the 6 Harmony's golden body. However, while it's called a golden body, the power of the divine ability permeating the statue's surface was clearly earthy yellow. At this moment, Duan Lingtian also came to a realization, knowing that it was precisely because the behemoth statue had used the 6 Harmony's golden body that his first sword strike failed to break its defense. My strike just now, even if it were a peak middle Saint Realm existence using the strongest defensive move from an Earth-rank Saint-grade martial arts, might not have been able to take it so easily. But that behemoth statue blocked it using only late Saint Realm Chi and the divine ability, 6 Harmony's golden body. Recalling the scene just now, Duan Lingtian realized the extraordinary nature of the divine ability, 6 Harmony's golden body. Just as Duan Lingtian wanted to further understand the 6 Harmony's golden body, he heard some noise by his ear, causing him to snap back to his senses instantly. He withdrew his divine sense and looked toward the entrance of the stairs. After a dozen or so breaths, 3 figures walked out one after another from inside. What's going on? In this tower, every floor seems to have 2 piles of rubble. Is this really a place where a divine ability relic is hidden? The 3 young men who climbed to the top floor of the tower were discussing among themselves. Soon, their gazes fell upon the massive stone tablet in the distance. What is that? Could that be the divine ability relic? Someone said, and the eyes of the 3 immediately lit up. They wanted to step forward right away to observe the divine ability relic up close. We meet again. Just then, a faint voice suddenly came from behind the 3 of them. It was Duan Lingtian, who had appeared behind them at some unknown point. Judging by Duan Lingtian's words, he seemed to know the 3 people in front of him, or rather, he knew someone among them. 2 of the 3 people's expressions changed drastically upon hearing these words from behind them. Lingtian. This voice was not unfamiliar to them. It was the voice of the number 1 person of the Xian Kong Mansion's younger generation, Lingtian. and also the voice of the Lingtian they had abandoned earlier. That's right. Two of the three were precisely the profound Hall disciples, Pengtsen and Hu Rui, who had taken the opportunity to run away while Duan Lingtian was pursuing Zhao Ji earlier. They never imagined in their wildest dreams that they would encounter Duan Lingtian here. Lingtian, at the same time, the last of the three also turned around, looking at Duan Lingtian standing not far away with a face full of surprise. Clearly, he hadn't expected to meet Duan Lingtian here. You guys, however, he soon noticed that Pengtsen and Hu Rui, who had turned around with him, were pale as if they were afraid of something. For a moment, his heart skipped a beat, as if he had guessed something. Immediately, he timely took a few steps back, distancing himself from the two. Lingtian, I'm actually not that familiar with them. I'm a Yellow Hall disciple. I just happened to be passing by and was pulled along by them to explore this place. After backing away, he hurriedly explained to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian swept a faint glance at him, nodded, and then looked back at Pengtsen and Hu Rui. You two have quite the courage to treat my words as wind passing by your ears. Pengtsen and Hu Rui lowered their heads, speechless. Of course, they were now regretting it to death. Had they known that this Lingtian could find this place just by knowing the direction, they would never have abandoned Lingtian and run away. Swish, swish. Seeing that the two weren't speaking, Duan Lingtian didn't bother to say more to them. With a wave of his hand, two swift sword lights flew past, wiping them out. To be precise, it wiped out the clones of the two. The moment their clones were wiped out, their divine senses would return to their original bodies and then be kicked out of the sacred martial secret realm. In an instant, only Duan Lingtian and that Yellow Hall disciple remained on the top floor of this tower. Aren't you leaving? Or do you want to go out with them? Duan Lingtian swept a faint glance at the Yellow Hall disciple and asked. The Yellow Hall disciple had long been scared silly by Duan Lingtian's move. He hadn't expected Duan Lingtian to send Pengtsen and the other out with a single strike. Hearing Duan Lingtian's words now, he snapped back to his senses and hurriedly turned to walk down the stairs. He now had only one thought: to leave this place as quickly as possible. As for any divine ability relic, he didn't dare think about it at all. With Lingtian there, even if it were an advanced divine ability relic, it wouldn't be his turn. After the Yellow Hall disciple left, Duan Lingtian's divine sense merged back into that massive stone tablet and began to comprehend the divine ability recorded within 6 Harmony's golden body. Of course, in a strict sense, it couldn't be called comprehension, only memorization. While Duan Lingtian was memorizing the divine ability 6 Harmony's golden body, the group of people outside the sacred martial secret realm noticed movement at the entrance of the realm again. After a moment, they saw 2 people come out. Pengtsen, Hu Rui, you. Why have you 2 come out as well? Seeing the 2, the profound hall master couldn't help but be stunned. The 2 before him were both his profound hall disciples, and their cultivation had both entered the peak minor saint realm. In terms of strength, they were among the best of the peak minor saint realm profound hall disciples. However, in just over 3 days, they had been eliminated. Only half a day later than Zhao Ji, who was the first to be eliminated. Hall Master, we were eliminated by Lingtian. Pengtsen and the other gave a bitter smile, and at the same time glanced at Zhao Ji not far away, feeling a bit more balanced in their hearts. It's fine. It's fine. We weren't the first ones to be eliminated. Seeing someone to take the fall, and an existence at the mid-stage middle saint realm at that. Although they felt it was a pity to be kicked out of the sacred martial secret realm like this, they weren't overly saddened. It's Lingtian again. Hearing Pengtsen's words, the scene instantly erupted like a boiling pot. What on earth does that little fellow want to do? You 2 have a grudge against Lingtian as well. The profound hall master looked at Pengtsen and the other, asking in a deep voice. Hall master, before entering the sacred martial secret realm, we never had any interaction with Lingtian. Pengtsen said with a bitter face. Then you. The profound hall master's brow couldn't help but furrow. He prided himself on his ability to read people. Although he had only seen that Ling Tian and hadn't interacted with him, he could tell he didn't seem like someone who would stir up trouble for no reason. Seeing everyone looking over in confusion, Peng Tsin hurriedly recounted what happened between them and Ling Tian, including how they ran away while Ling Tian went to pursue Zhao Ji. It's your own fault to abandon him like that. Anyone else wouldn't let you off either. The profound Hall Master shook his head, not blaming Ling Tian. If he were Ling Tian, he would have done the same. Natural selection, survival of the fittest. This was the law of nature's survival. Following that, Peng Tsin spoke about encountering Ling Tian again later, and also about the massive stone tablet they saw that was suspected to be a divine ability relic. What? Hearing Peng Tsin's words, Zhao Deng's expression changed. You're saying that Ling Tian has already obtained a divine ability relic? Zhao Ji, standing beside Zhao Deng, also had an exceptionally ugly expression. He had only been in the sacred martial secret realm for 3 days before being kicked out by Ling Tian. Yet Ling Tian had actually obtained a divine ability relic so quickly. He hated him. He wished he could cut Ling Tian into 1,000 pieces. It should be. Peng Tsin nodded. Receiving Peng Tsin's confirmation, the crowd was in another uproar. It's only been over 3 days, and that Ling Tian has already obtained a divine ability relic? I wonder what kind of divine ability relic it is. Hey, you too. Tell us what characteristics the place where that divine ability relic appeared had. Soon, the Earth Hall Master looked at Peng Tsin and the other, asking, in the history of the Xian Kong Mansion, anyone who entered the sacred martial secret realm and obtained a divine ability relic would generally follow the mansion's rules and describe the process of obtaining it. After so many years, the Xian Kong Mansion had recorded many processes for obtaining various divine ability relics. If someone else experienced a similar process, they could infer what divine ability was recorded in the divine ability relic that person obtained. A 6-story pagoda? One must kill 3 savage beasts that know how to use combined attack methods before being able to enter. Each floor of the pagoda has 2 piles of crushed stones. The 6th floor, besides the 2 piles of crushed stones, also has a huge statue and a stone tablet suspected to be a divine ability relic. The Xian Kong Mansion high-level figures present learned all sorts of information about the interior of the 6-story pagoda from Peng Tsin. If I remember correctly, that is the 6 Harmonies Pagoda, and the divine ability Duan Ling Tian obtained should be the 6 Harmonies Golden Body. In the end, it was the mansion master, Meng Qing, who first regained his senses and slowly said, although the 6 Harmonies Golden Body is not yet considered a high-grade divine ability, it is not weak. Among the divine abilities in the sacred martial secret realm, it is enough to be ranked as an intermediate divine ability. It's actually an intermediate divine ability. Immediately, the others were also in an uproar. They originally thought that since Ling Tian had only entered the sacred martial secret realm for 3 days, it would already be good if he encountered a low-grade divine ability relic and obtained a low-grade divine ability. Yet, they never expected that Ling Tian encountered an intermediate divine ability relic and obtained an intermediate divine ability. I've also heard of the 6 Harmonies Golden Body. It seems to be a defensive divine ability. Qin Pingsheng, the Hall Master of the Yellow Hall, said this at the opportune moment. Intermediate divine ability. Damn it. Hearing that Duan Ling Tian obtained an intermediate divine ability, the complexions of Zhao Deng and his son became even uglier, and the hatred in their hearts for Duan Ling Tian also increased significantly. Not bad, not bad. Zhu Luqi, the Hall Master of the Heavenly Hall, nodded in satisfaction, not sparing any words of praise. Entering the sacred martial secret realm for 3 days and obtaining an intermediate divine ability? Kumi stood beside them, feeling somewhat surprised, because even in the history of their Qingyun mansion, those who could achieve such results after entering the sacred martial secret realm were few and far between. Although Duan Ling Tian knew that the news of him encountering a divine ability relic and obtaining a divine ability had most likely spread through the mouths of Peng Tsin and the other person, But he absolutely never expected that based on Peng Tsin's words, Meng Qing, the mansion master of their Xiankong mansion, would guess that the divine ability contained within the divine ability relic he encountered was the Six Harmonies golden body. This Six Harmonies golden body is indeed something that can only be understood intuitively, not explained in words. No wonder they all say one must break through to the human saint realm before trying to comprehend and master it. However, according to Elder Hua, I don't need to break through to the human saint realm. I only need to break through to the great saint realm to comprehend the divine ability. Duan Lingtian was still clear about his own situation. As time flowed by, a day and a night passed, and Duan Lingtian successfully memorized the divine ability Six Harmonies golden body in his mind, including some things that could only be understood intuitively, not explained in words. And when Duan Lingtian retracted his divine sense, he found that the huge stone tablet in front of him had disappeared. What disappeared along with the stone tablet were the Six Harmonies pagoda he was originally inside, as well as the formation space where the Six Harmonies pagoda was located. Now, he had returned to the stone forest. While inside the stone forest, he could no longer sense a trace of the formation's chi. Evidently, that illusion formation had collapsed after he memorized the Six Harmonies golden body, thus completing its mission. I wonder what level of divine ability this Six Harmonies golden body I obtained is. If Elder Hul were here, he would definitely know what grade the Six Harmonies golden body is. While muttering to himself, Duan Lingtian left the stone forest. The priority now is to first meet up with Wang Feishuan and Lu Jian. I don't know where they are now or if they have already met. The sacred martial secret realm is so vast. Finding them truly isn't an easy task. Over the next 20-odd days, although Duan Lingtian encountered many people, he failed to meet Wang Feishuan or Lu Jian. Of course, during these 20-odd days, he was not without gains. He encountered another divine ability relic and memorized a divine ability. That divine ability was named Blazing Flame Clone. It sounded decent, but based on Duan Lingtian's speculation, it was definitely not as advanced as the Six Harmonies golden body he had obtained earlier. Not only was the trial encounter during its acquisition simple, but the content itself was also very simple. When used in execution, even Duan Lingtian wasn't sure if it offered any substantial help. There are still 2 months remaining. I hope to meet them soon. Duan Lingtian wandered aimlessly inside the sacred martial secret realm while searching for traces related to divine ability relics. In the past 20-odd days, although he met many people, Duan Lingtian did not attack them because he had no conflict with them. Thus, there was no need to randomly eliminate people based on the idea that one less person means one less competitor. Duan Lingtian had just passed several rugged barren mountains when he heard sounds of fighting coming from afar. The fighting didn't last long and quickly ceased. Driven by curiosity, Duan Lingtian approached. With a single glance, he saw 3 people surrounding one person in the distance. Duan Lingtian had some impression of the person being surrounded. He was also a new disciple who entered the heavenly hall of the Xiankong mansion along with him, but they had no interaction. The other 3 were not heavenly hall disciples. Seeing that the new disciple was being forced into a corner by the 3, Duan Lingtian raised an eyebrow and decided to intervene in this matter, for no other reason than that the person being surrounded was a heavenly hall disciple. We are members of the Zhao family lineage. As long as you tell us the location where the divine ability relic is hidden, we will owe you a favor. After we leave, we will inform Vice Mansion Master Zhao Ding about this, allowing you to join our Zhao family lineage as well. Once you join our Zhao family lineage, you can walk sideways in the Xiankong mansion from now on. One of the 3 people surrounding the Heavenly Hall disciple said to the Heavenly Hall disciple, "Kid, with your strength, even knowing that location is useless because you simply cannot pass the trial and see the divine ability relic. You might as well tell us, and we'll consider it a favor owed by our Zhao family lineage." The other person also said, A wise man submits to circumstances. If you don't want to be eliminated like your companion, you'd best confess honestly. Unlike the previous two who tried the soft approach, the last person went straight for the hard approach. Eliminated like my companion. However, the Heavenly Hall disciple, facing the encirclement of the three from the Zhao family lineage, did not show any panic. Instead, he sneered, "Go ahead and eliminate me. I'd like to see how you find that place after eliminating me." The three Xin Kong Mansion disciples of the Zhao family lineage hadn't expected this Heavenly Hall disciple to be so unyielding, and their expressions immediately turned very ugly. "How about this? As long as you share the location of that place, we can let you join our small team. After we each find a divine ability relic, we will let you have the fourth divine ability relic." Soon, one of the Xin Kong Mansion disciples from the Zhao family lineage who had spoken before said. Hearing his words, he clearly chose to compromise. "Who knows if you'll go back on your word later?" Hearing his words, the sneer on the Heavenly Hall disciple's face intensified. "You? Then what do you want?" The three Xin Kong Mansion disciples of the Zhao family lineage were getting angry. Facing this Heavenly Hall disciple who was impervious to reason, they truly didn't know what to do. They had thought that eliminating the opponent's companion would serve as a killing the chicken to warn the monkey effect, but now it seemed to have no effect whatsoever. "You can let me join your small team, but I want the second divine ability relic we encounter. Furthermore, you must swear a thunder punishment oath not to go back on your word." The Heavenly Hall disciple pondered for a moment and said, seemingly with some difficulty, "No way." Hearing his words, the three Xin Kong Mansion disciples of the Zhao family lineage unanimously vetoed it. "We cannot give you the second divine ability relic. At most, we can give you the third divine ability relic. As for the thunder punishment oath, we can swear it." One of the Xin Kong Mansion disciples from the Zhao family lineage said, "This is our bottom line. If you truly aren't willing to share with us, then we can only eliminate you, even if it means we can't obtain that divine ability relic." The Heavenly Hall disciple's previously furrowed brow relaxed slightly. Just as he opened his mouth, preparing to agree, an abrupt voice came, interrupting him. "Zhao family lineage?" Hearing the voice, the Heavenly Hall disciple followed the sound and looked towards its source. With a single glance, he saw a handsome, tall young man stepping through the air from afar. Every movement he made faintly exuded a powerful aura, which subtly made people feel ashamed of their own inferiority deep inside. "Senior Brother Lingtian." After clearly seeing the face of the newcomer, the Heavenly Hall disciple cried out in pleasant surprise. "Lingtian." Hearing the voice from behind, the three Xin Kong Mansion disciples of the Zhao family lineage who hadn't had time to turn around all changed color upon hearing the Heavenly Hall disciples' words. Lingtian, that name was naturally not unfamiliar to them. In fact, after this person publicly gave Zhao Ji 2 slaps, he had already become the mortal enemy of their Zhao family lineage. The three turned around, looking at Lingtian stepping through the air from afar. Their expressions were extremely ugly, and their eyes revealed deep apprehension. Their hearts were filled with anxiety. "Do you know where Zhao Ji is?" Duan Lingtian stopped in front of the three Xin Kong Mansion disciples of the Zhao family lineage, glanced at them indifferently, and asked, "We don't know, Senior Brother Lingtian. We genuinely don't know where Senior Brother Zhao Ji is. Senior Brother Lingtian, we are not lying to you. We really don't know where Senior Brother Zhao Ji is. If we knew, we would definitely be traveling with him. After all, in this sacred martial secret realm, there is strength in numbers." The three still thought Duan Lingtian was looking for Zhao Ji and immediately explained in panic. Hearing the three people's words, Duan Lingtian was somewhat speechless, knowing that they had misunderstood the intention of his question. "I wasn't asking where Zhao Ji is." Duan Lingtian's gaze cooled slightly. "I just wanted to tell you that Zhao Ji is already waiting for you outside." Hearing Duan Lingtian's words, even if the three Xin Kong Mansion disciples from the Zhao family lineage were slow-witted, they finally came to their senses. Immediately, The expressions of the three changed drastically. Ling Tian, you killed senior brother Zhao Ji's clone? When the Xian Kong Mansion disciples of the Zhao family lineage looked at Duan Lingtian again, a look of terror appeared in their eyes. Although they knew there was a conflict between this Ling Tian and Zhao Ji, they never expected that Ling Tian would dare to kill Zhao Ji inside the sacred martial secret realm. One must know that among the Xian Kong Mansion disciples from the Zhao family lineage who entered the sacred martial secret realm this time, the strongest was Zhao Ji. Zhao Ji was also the person with the greatest hope of obtaining a middle or high-grade divine ability relic, breaking through to the human saint realm, and comprehending and mastering the divine ability recorded within the relic. Killing Zhao Ji and eliminating him meant that the Zhao family lineage might lose a human saint realm expert who had comprehended a divine ability from the sacred martial secret realm. This was an enormous loss for the Zhao family lineage. I remember that on the third day after I arrived, I ran into him. Since we were so fated, if I didn't send him out, wouldn't that be too unkind? Duan Lingtian said indifferently, as if he were talking about something trivial. The Heavenly Hall disciple who was surrounded already had a look of shock on his face after hearing Duan Lingtian say that Zhao Ji had been sent out by him. Although he also knew there was friction between Ling Tian and Zhao Ji, he didn't expect Ling Tian to be so fierce as to directly take out Zhao Ji's clone. Now, hearing Duan Lingtian's additional comment, he was even more dumbfounded. On the third day after entering the sacred martial secret realm, Zhao Ji was already eliminated? That Zhao Ji is too unlucky, isn't he? While the Heavenly Hall disciple was speechless, he was also filled with pity for Zhao Ji. 3 days. Although the three Xian Kong Mansion disciples of the Zhao family lineage already knew about Duan Lingtian eliminating Zhao Ji, they were once again frightened when they heard Duan Lingtian say this. Originally, they thought Zhao Ji had only been eliminated by Duan Lingtian in the last few days. They never expected that Zhao Ji would be eliminated by Duan Lingtian only 3 days after entering. How unlucky must he be? Thinking of bad luck, the three looked at each other and saw the same thought in each other's eyes. Speaking of bad luck, they seemed to be quite unlucky as well, didn't they? The three of them together were about to be wiped out in one go by this Ling Tian. Flee. Although the chances are slim, it's better than waiting for death. I agree. Flee. Flee. Quickly, the three Xian Kong Mansion disciples of the Zhao family lineage communicated via voice transmission and reached a consensus. At this moment, they completely put the Heavenly Hall disciple they had surrounded to the back of their minds. They now had only one thought, and that was to survive under Ling Tian's hands. Among the three Xian Kong Mansion disciples of the Zhao family lineage, the weakest was at the peak minor saint realm, while the 2 stronger ones were at the early middle saint realm. After reaching an agreement, one of them sent a voice transmission reminder, and the 3 moved almost at the same time, preparing to flee in 3 different directions. Only in this way would they have a chance to escape. Of the 3, even if only one escaped, they would feel better, as it was much better than being completely wiped out. As for pleading with Duan Lingtian, they hadn't even considered it. Even Zhao Ji from their Zhao family lineage had been taken out and sent out by Ling Tian. Even if the 3 of them pleaded submissively or spoke flowery words, they would likely still meet their end. Since that was the case, why not take a gamble? Zhao Ji didn't manage to escape from my hands. Do you think you're stronger than him? Duan Lingtian, who was already alert, had his solar true essence covering the membrane under his skin. Seeing the 3 trying to bolt in different directions, he immediately activated the solar true essence covering his body, transforming it into 6 dazzling, golden sword lights. Swish, swish, swish. Following that, just as the 3 had fled a short distance, the 6 sword lights that streaked across the sky like 6 blazing suns landed on them. Their foreheads and hearts were all pierced through. The 3 figures directly vaporized and vanished. Hiss! Even though he had already guessed this outcome, the Heavenly Hall disciple standing nearby couldn't help but gasp. to wipe out 2 early Middle Saint Realm martial cultivators and 1 peak minor Saint Realm martial cultivator with a wave of a hand. Among the younger generation of Xiankong Mansion, only the person before him could achieve this. After wiping out the 3 Xiankong Mansion disciples of the Zhao family lineage, Duan Lingtian's expression softened slightly. His grudge with the Zhao family lineage had been established as early as when he publicly slapped Zhao Ji twice, and there was no room for reconciliation. How could there be reconciliation? Zhao Ji's father, Zhao Deng, was a vice mansion master of Xiankong Mansion, and his grandfather was one of the 2 great protectors of Xiankong Mansion. His 2 closest relatives were the 2 highest-ranking leaders of the Zhao family lineage. Offending Zhao Ji was equivalent to offending the entire Zhao family lineage. Because he was clear on this point, whether it was wiping out Zhao Ji earlier or the 3 Xiankong Mansion disciples of the Zhao family lineage just now, Duan Lingtian did not hesitate at all, not even blinking an eye. Since he had already offended them thoroughly, he didn't care about offending them further. Nodding to the Heavenly Hall disciple as a greeting, Duan Lingtian then turned around, preparing to leave. Seeing this scene, the Heavenly Hall disciple was stunned. He had thought of many possibilities, but he never expected that Duan Lingtian would leave without saying anything after wiping out the 3 disciples from the Zhao family lineage and resolving his predicament. Did he not hear the conversation he just had with the 3 people from the Zhao family lineage? Did he not know that he had clues to a divine ability relic? On second thought, he felt it was impossible. Seeing how calmly Duan Lingtian had approached, he had clearly been hiding nearby for some time and had most likely overheard their conversation. As for leaving now, it was naturally because the other party had no intention of forcing him to reveal the clues to the divine ability relic. The Heavenly Hall disciple had guessed correctly. Although Duan Lingtian didn't mind snatching divine ability relic clues from disciples of other halls, he couldn't bring himself to snatch clues from a fellow Heavenly Hall disciple. After all, he was also a Heavenly Hall disciple and had even received the blessing of the Heavenly Hall spirit pool. He felt a certain sense of belonging to the Heavenly Hall. Senior brother Lingtian. Seeing Duan Lingtian walking further and further away, the Heavenly Hall disciple grew anxious and immediately chased after him. Is there something else? Hearing the voice, Duan Lingtian stopped, turned around to look at the Heavenly Hall disciple, and showed a look of confusion. Senior brother Lingtian, I want to cooperate with you. The Heavenly Hall disciple took a deep breath and said after calming down slightly, Cooperate with me? Duan Lingtian smiled. I heard just now that you have clues to a divine ability relic. But there's only one clue. Even if we pass the test, who gets the chance to comprehend the divine ability in the end is a problem. If I weren't cooperating with anyone else, it would be fine. We could continue looking for a second divine ability relic and give the chance to the other person. But the problem is, I'm also cooperating with others. My concern is that while I'm cooperating with you, before we find a second relic, I might run into my other 2 partners. Duan Lingtian said, I've already promised one of them that the first divine ability relic we find after meeting up will be given to him. Senior brother Lingtian, the fact that you can say this shows you are an upright person. I, Xiao Dun, truly admire you, the Heavenly Hall disciple said with a look of admiration. Then, Xiao Dun changed the subject and continued. However, I don't have clues for just 1 divine ability relic. I have clues for 2. As long as senior brother Lingtian cooperates with me, how about we take 1 divine ability relic each? After speaking, Xiao Dun looked at Duan Lingtian with anticipation. 2 divine ability relics? Hearing Xiao Dun's words, Duan Lingtian was greatly surprised. He hadn't expected that Xiao Dun, a mere peak minor Saint Realm cultivator, would obtain clues to 2 divine ability relics after only a month in the sacred martial secret realm. Yes, Xiao Dun nodded, then seemed to remember something and sighed deeply. Actually, those 2 divine ability relics were both found by a friend of mine. He practiced a secret art related to the eyes, which made his vision far exceed that of ordinary people. It's precisely because of this that he could find clues to those 2 divine ability relics in just 1 month. Unfortunately, just as he was preparing to find one more divine ability relic and seek out a Middle Saint Realm expert to cooperate with us and explore the relics together, he happened to run into those 3 and was eliminated. As he finished, Xiao Dun's face was full of regret. It is indeed a pity. Duan Lingtian nodded, while also feeling quite surprised. Even he, after entering the sacred martial secret realm for a month, had only obtained 2 divine abilities. Xiao Dun's friend, although he hadn't obtained a divine ability, had found clues to 2 divine ability relics. His luck was not inferior to his own at all. I just wonder, what level are the divine abilities within those 2 relics? Duan Lingtian was quite curious about this, and for a moment, he seemed to have forgotten that he hadn't yet agreed to Xiao Dun's request for cooperation. Senior brother Lingtian. It wasn't until Xiao Dun spoke again that Duan Lingtian snapped out of it. I can cooperate with you. But how will those 2 divine ability relics be divided? Let me first tell senior brother Lingtian about the situation of those 2 divine ability relics I currently know of. Xiao Dun didn't hold anything back and shared all the information he knew. Those 2 divine ability relics were similar to the ones Duan Lingtian had encountered before. They were both entered through an illusion formation, and after entering, one would face the first trial. The first trial of the first divine ability relic Duan Lingtian encountered was relatively difficult, so the divine ability he obtained was also quite advanced. According to what Xiao Dun said, the difficulty of the first trial for the 2 divine ability relics he found could actually be compared to the one that recorded the 6-direction golden body divine ability. Clearly, the divine abilities recorded in those 2 relics were no weaker than the 6-direction golden body. That friend of yours had quite good luck, Duan Lingtian remarked with a sigh. At the entrance of the sacred martial secret realm, 3 more people appeared. As soon as the 3 appeared, they attracted the attention of everyone present. The people from Xian Kong Mansion, who had been sitting quietly in various places, opened their eyes one after another, their gazes falling on the 3 without exception. Why is it you? Seeing the 3 who had come out, Zhao Deng's face changed, because all 3 were members of his Zhao family lineage. One must know that their Zhao family lineage, including his son Zhao Ji, only had a total of 5 people enter. And now, in just a month's time, 4 of them had been eliminated. Seeing Zhao Deng's changing expression, the 3 Xian Kong Mansion disciples from the Zhao family lineage all showed bitter expressions, but in their hearts, they were secretly cursing. If your son hadn't offended that person, we wouldn't have been kicked out by him. It was no wonder they thought this way. Although they were Xian Kong Mansion disciples of the Zhao family lineage, they had no prior interaction with Duan Lingtian, let alone offending him. Duan Lingtian had killed their clones and kicked them out of the sacred martial secret realm simply because of their identity. Besides being Xian Kong Mansion disciples, they were also members of the Zhao family lineage. The clones of us 3 were killed by Lingtian. Facing the ugly-faced Zhao Deng, one of the Xian Kong Mansion disciples from the Zhao family lineage finally plucked up the courage to speak. He's too strong. We had no power to fight back in front of him. Lingtian. It was Lingtian again. Hearing the words of this Zhao family lineage Xian Kong Mansion disciple, the eyes of most people present fell on Zhao Deng, with a hint of pity hidden within. It's him again, Zhao Ji growled out in a somewhat loose-control manner, his eyes flashing with a fierce light and killing intent. Mansion Master. I was killed and eliminated by them. At the same time, beside the Earth Hall Master, a young man spoke in a low voice to the Earth Hall Master. As he spoke, a hint of schadenfreude was clearly mixed between his brows. This young man was precisely the Xian Kong Mansion disciple who had been with Xiao Dun previously. He was also the one who had discovered the locations of the 2 divine ability relics that Xiao Dun knew about. Having discovered 2 divine ability relics and being eliminated before having the chance to explore them, one could imagine the frustration in his heart. But now, Seeing that the three Zhao family lineage Xian Kong Mansion disciples who had just eliminated him were also eliminated, his heart immediately filled with joy, and his inner frustration was swept away. The Earth Hall Master nodded. It's a pity about the 2 divine ability relics you found. They've benefited that kid from the Heavenly Hall. You just came out not long ago, and the 3 of them followed. It seems that Ling Tian must have stepped in to save that Heavenly Hall kid. It should be. The young man nodded, secretly breathing a sigh of relief while his eyes showed a hint of envy, but no jealousy, because he and that Heavenly Hall disciple Xiao Dun were very good friends who had known each other before joining Xian Kong Mansion. Learning that Xiao Dun was fine, he actually felt relieved. Damn it, those divine ability relics will definitely become that Ling Tian's possessions. Zhao Ding only felt a surge of rage that he couldn't vent. It could be imagined that if Duan Lingtian were in front of him, he would definitely strike to kill Duan Lingtian without hesitation. Sigh, it seems some people are destined to have no connection with the 2 divine ability relics I found. Just as the Zhao father and son were nearly dying of anger, the young man beside the Earth Hall Master looked at the 3 Zhao family lineage disciples who had just come out and sighed with feigned pity. What did you say? 2 divine ability relics? You discovered 2 divine ability relics? Immediately, the 3 Zhao family lineage disciples widened their eyes, looking in disbelief at the young man. The Earth Hall disciple whose clone they had killed and whom they had eliminated not long ago. I'm already out. What would be the point of lying to you? I estimate that senior brother Ling Tian and Xiao Dun should be on their way to those 2 divine ability relics right now. The Earth Hall disciple spoke indifferently, and towards the end, his words carried a bit of schadenfreude. The 3 Zhao family lineage disciples were all dumbfounded. 2 divine ability relics had slipped away from right under their noses just like that. 2 divine ability relics. For a moment, many gazes fell on Zhao Ding again. Zhao Ding, by the time the Earth Hall disciples' words landed, was already shaking slightly with anger. How is this possible? That Ling Tian, what capability does he have? Why is his luck so good? Zhao Ji's eyes were bloodshot, his face full of unwillingness. Ling Tian's luck really is good. Yellow Hall Master Qian Pingsheng couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Indeed, many people agreed. Haha, junior brother Ling Tian really is full of surprises. Guli also laughed. That Ling Tian's luck is quite good. I just don't know if he is the young mansion master. Kumi stood to the side, seemingly unmoving, but in reality, his heart was not calm either. At the same time, inside the sacred martial secret realm, Duan Lingtian looked at Xiao Dun and said, according to what you said, the first trials of those 2 divine ability relics are of similar difficulty. Presumably, the divine abilities recorded within are also quite similar. Since the clues for those 2 divine ability relics were provided by you, you choose one first. Since they were about the same, Duan Lingtian didn't care much. I'll choose the palace one. Is that okay? Xiao Dun looked at Duan Lingtian and asked somewhat cautiously, his eyes deep with a hint of nervousness. After giving Xiao Dun a deep look, while Xiao Dun waited nervously, Duan Lingtian finally nodded. Okay. The 2 divine ability relics Xiao Dun mentioned, although their first trials were similar, were located in 2 extreme environments. One divine ability relic was located inside a magnificent palace, and Xiao Dun and his companion had been blocked outside the palace by the first trial at that time. The other divine ability relic was located within a gloomy, dark swamp, a complete extreme opposite of the former. Although the difficulty of the first trial in both places was similar, any normal person would prioritize the former because it was a palace, which seemed more high-end, and the divine ability recorded in the relic inside would surely not be simple. If Duan Lingtian were to choose first, he would also subconsciously choose the former. However, since Xiao Dun had chosen, he didn't say anything more. After all, the clues for those 2 divine ability relics were provided by Xiao Dun. If it weren't for Xiao Dun, he would probably have had to search on his own for a while longer to find the next divine ability relic. Then we'll go to the divine ability relic you chose first. After you've comprehended the divine ability recorded inside, you can take me to the next one. For the next one, I can venture in alone, and you can go look for other divine ability relics then. That way, it won't waste your time. Duan Lingtian said to Xiao Dun, "Senior brother Lingtian, you trust me that much?" Xiao Dun was somewhat surprised by Duan Lingtian's decision. He originally thought Duan Lingtian would go to the swamp first to comprehend his own divine ability relic, but he didn't expect Duan Lingtian would help him get his first. We're both Heavenly Hall disciples. It's not a matter of trust. Duan Lingtian spoke casually, but hearing it, Xiao Dun felt a bit ashamed because he had just had a small selfish thought to pick the divine ability relic hidden in the palace first. Senior brother Lingtian, how about we swap? Even if the level of the divine ability hidden in that palace is similar to the one in the swamp, I feel it should be better. Taking a deep breath, Xiao Dun made a decision. The fact that you can say these words is enough to show your sincerity. However, since it's already decided, there's no need to keep swapping. The divine ability relic in that palace is still yours. Duan Lingtian said, "Lead the way." After letting Xiao Dun lead the way, Duan Lingtian followed behind him, heading straight for the first divine ability relic. A day and a night passed. Duan Lingtian followed Xiao Dun into a vast prairie and stopped above a huge lake. The entrance is in the lake. Duan Lingtian raised an eyebrow, somewhat surprised. Yes, Xiao Dun nodded and then dove in first, entering the lake like an agile fish. Duan Lingtian followed him in. At their level of cultivation, entering a lake was like walking on flat ground. By covering their bodies with true qi, they could completely block the lake water out. As they approached the bottom of the lake, Duan Lingtian detected the fluctuations of a formation. Going deeper, Duan Lingtian saw Xiao Dun disappear before his eyes, and as he continued down a bit further, his vision went black. When light returned to his eyes and Duan Lingtian came to his senses, he found himself in another place. This place looked extremely solemn. A palace crouched ahead like a giant beast. Everything here was exactly as Xiao Dun had described before. Senior brother Lingtian, the ones guarding the gates of this palace are 5 avian vicious beasts, all at the peak minor saint realm. At this moment, Xiao Dun's reminder came to Duan Lingtian's ear. 5 avian vicious beasts, and they are all different species with different methods. When we came in back then, we tried to break through, but nearly died here. By our estimation at the time, it would take at least 3 peak middle saint realm experts to eliminate them and enter the palace. However, if it's someone above the middle saint realm, they could eliminate them single-handedly. Xiao Dun continued, and as he spoke, his gaze toward Duan Lingtian was full of fervor. Duan Lingtian was an existence above the middle saint realm, and not just any ordinary saint realm expert. Understood. Duan Lingtian nodded. Then his body moved, shooting out like a bolt of lightning straight toward the palace gates ahead. At this moment, the palace gates were tightly closed. Just as Duan Lingtian was halfway there, several sharp, piercing cries suddenly came from the distance. Immediately following that, 5 massive figures appeared above the palace as if out of thin air. The 5 massive figures were exactly the 5 avian savage beasts Xiao Dun had mentioned. The 5 avian savage beasts did not belong to the same species. Some had hideous faces, some looked decent, and one was completely featherless, essentially a pure bald bird. Their only commonality was that they were all birds. Accompanied by several piercing shrieks, the 5 avian savage beasts immediately lunged toward Duan Lingtian. They moved with extreme speed, like 5 merciless bolts of lightning striking out. Just a few mangy birds, and you dare to show off your prestige before me. Facing the 5 menacing avian savage beasts, Duan Lingtian snorted coldly, his tone filled with disdain. In the next moment, without Duan Lingtian appearing to move at all, the solar true essence surging from his body transformed into streaks of sword light. They rapidly swirled around his body, finally forming a giant bell. This was the Tai Yin sword bell, which Duan Lingtian had self-created based on the Tai Yin arrow bell. Boom, 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 boom. It had to be said that the attacks of 5 peak Lesser Saint Realm avian savage beasts were very strong. Every move that broke through the air caused the Void Realm to tremble. When such attacks landed on the Tai Yin sword bell, they also caused the latter to shudder. However, although it trembled, there were no signs of it collapsing. So strong. In the distance, Xiao Dun was dumbstruck. Although he had long known that this senior brother Lingtian was powerful, he still couldn't help but be greatly shocked when he truly witnessed senior brother Lingtian's strength. To think that back then, he and his companions were chased around by these 5 mangy birds. Yet here with senior brother Lingtian, the situation was at 2 complete extremes. Senior brother Lingtian had only casually used a defensive technique, and no matter how hard those 5 mangy birds tried, they couldn't break through his defense. Too weak. How boring. Seeing that the 5 avian savage beasts couldn't break his Tai Yin sword bell even with all their might, Duan Lingtian suddenly lost interest. With a thought, the Tai Yin sword bell vanished, and the hundreds of streaks of sword light that had formed it instantly shot toward the 5 avian savage beasts. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. In an instant, it was as if a rain of swords had begun to fall in the Void Realm. Of course, this sword rain was different from ordinary rain. Ordinary rain falls vertically, while this fell horizontally. The sword rain swept across the sky, creating bursts of piercing sword whistles. Everywhere it passed, the Void Realm seemed to be torn apart. Under the baptism of the sword rain, the 5 avian savage beasts were all completely vaporized, just like those 3 savage beasts at the entrance of that tower. Seeing this, Duan Lingtian's heart stirred, thinking of the divine ability relic that recorded the indestructible golden body, the indestructible tower. However, although there were only 3 savage beasts guarding the entrance of the indestructible tower, because they knew how to use combined attack methods, the strength of their joint efforts was not at all weaker than the 5 avian savage beasts just now. Rumble. Almost at the same time the 5 avian savage beasts were destroyed, the gates of the distant palace opened. It really is the same as the indestructible tower, Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Since the door was open, he naturally had to go in, so Duan Lingtian walked toward the palace gates without any hesitation. Xiao Dun followed closely behind, his eyes full of fanaticism as he looked at Duan Lingtian's back. After entering the palace, Duan Lingtian found that the trials encountered inside were also similar to those of the indestructible tower. Of course, when saying they were similar, it meant that the strength of the opponents met during the step-by-step progression was similar. The further they went, the stronger the opponents became. As they fought their way through, the gaze Xiao Dun directed at Duan Lingtian became increasingly fanatical. He didn't need to take action at all during the trials along the way. To be precise, he didn't even have a chance to act, because this senior brother Lingtian's speed was too fast. Of course, for the later trials, even if he did act, it would be impossible for him to pass. The hall ahead is the last one. If I'm not mistaken, the divine ability relic should be inside. Walking down the central corridor of the palace, Duan Lingtian suddenly halted his steps, looked ahead, and spoke to Xiao Dun. Hearing this, Xiao Dun looked up at the last palace hall they had yet to enter. He saw a carved plaque above the main entrance of the hall, with 3 large characters written in a flamboyant style. Yen Tian Hall. The 3 characters invisibly exerted a pressure on people, as if they contained some kind of special power. A divine ability relic. Hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Xiao Dun's heart was also somewhat excited because he would soon obtain a divine ability. Although he might not necessarily be able to master it in the future, having hope was better than no hope. Moreover, seeing the trials along the way, he was also certain that the divine ability would definitely not be a low-grade one. Although he had also joined the Xian Kong mansion later on, he had heard that in the sacred martial secret realm, generally the harder the trial, the more advanced the divine ability relic inside would be. Because of this, while Xiao Dun was excited, He was also full of anticipation, wondering what kind of divine ability would be recorded in the divine ability relic within the Yin Tian Hall before him. After going in, do not leave my side. If I'm not mistaken, there should be one final trial inside. Before entering, Duan Lingtian reminded Xiao Dun. With the experience from the indestructible tower, he believed that in the final Yin Tian Hall before them, there would surely be a trial waiting for him. Simply because, in this palace, an existence like the giant statue in the indestructible tower had not yet appeared. Yes, senior brother Lingtian. Along the way, Xiao Dun had already come to revere Duan Lingtian like a god and trusted his words unconditionally. Let's go in. Having received Xiao Dun's response, Duan Lingtian didn't waste any time and stepped into the Yin Tian Hall ahead. Yin Tian Hall. The name sounded nice, but upon entering, Duan Lingtian discovered that unlike the various halls they had passed through, this Yin Tian Hall contained nothing but countless irregular stones standing everywhere. One must know that the halls they had passed through along the way were all magnificent and gold-plated. Yet the Yin Tian Hall before them was more like a desolate, god-forsaken place. Now, it wasn't just Duan Lingtian who was stunned. Even Xiao Dun was dumbfounded and murmured, "Senior brother Lingtian, are we really still inside the palace? I feel like I've walked into the wrong room." Walked into the wrong room. Indeed, Duan Lingtian had the same feeling. However, the look of astonishment on Duan Lingtian's face quickly vanished, replaced by a look of gravity. Duan Lingtian's gaze soon returned to those countless irregular stones in the room, his heart filled with surprise. These stones were originally like dead objects, but now they seemed to be brewing life qi. What on earth are they? All of this was what Duan Lingtian's divine sense had just fed back to him. Senior brother Lingtian, these stones seem a bit strange. At the same time, Xiao Dun also noticed the abnormality of the stones on the ground. Boom. Almost the instant Xiao Dun finished speaking, a loud boom came from behind Duan Lingtian. When he subconsciously turned his head, he found that the only exit of the Yin Tian Hall had been blocked by a stone door, and both he and Xiao Dun were trapped inside. Unlike Duan Lingtian's composure, Xiao Dun's face changed drastically. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And at that moment, in the supposedly airtight Yin Tian Hall, the void vibrated as gusts of wind suddenly began to blow. The wind was light at first, but later it was like a raging gale, making the robes on Duan Lingtian and Xiao Dun's bodies flap loudly. Senior brother Lingtian, these stones seem to be moving. Xiao Dun suddenly cried out, his voice laced with a bit of trembling. Duan Lingtian nodded. He had noticed it too. As the gale raged within the Yin Tian Hall, the stones on the ground began to tremble. First, it was the smaller stones, and finally, even the ones that could be called boulders began to shake violently. Soon, the two of them discovered that some smaller stones had already levitated and were constantly rising. Gradually, the remaining stones also followed and levitated. Under the watch of the two, once all the stones had risen into the air, they weirdly converged together, finally transforming into a mountain-like stone man. A stone man completely composed of fragments of rock. The stone man had no eyes and no mouth, but it possessed life like a savage beast. It was not a mere decoration. Bang! Suddenly, the stone man moved. It took a step out and landed on the ground. While dust billowed, the entire Yin Tian Hall trembled several times as if an earthquake had occurred. Bang! 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 The stone man took several more steps, causing the Yin Tian Hall to tremble even more violently. And even Duan Lingtian and Xiao Dun, who were standing on the ground, shook from head to toe. Bang! 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 After a few steps, the two discovered the stone man's speed had increased. First walking, then nearly running as it charged toward them, its speed constantly rising. At the same time, the aura on the stone man began to gradually reveal itself, becoming increasingly vast and boundless, like a giant wave crashing toward them, making Xiao Dun nearly suffocate. As for Duan Lingtian, he was not affected in the slightest. Senior brother Ling Tian, be careful. With a flushed face, Xiao Dun hurriedly leaped into the air and warned Duan Ling Tian. However, Duan Ling Tian seemed not to have heard him at all, or rather, he directly ignored his words and proceeded straight toward the accelerating stone man. In his palm, solar true essence sprayed out at some point, finally transforming into a golden, brilliant 3-foot green edge. The aura on this stone man has stabilized. Late Saint Realm, just like that giant puppet on the last floor of the indestructible tower. Once the stone man's aura stabilized, Duan Ling Tian thought to himself, I want to see if you can take a casual sword strike from me, just as that giant puppet could. With a thought, Duan Ling Tian's figure suddenly shot out like a bolt of lightning, and the tip of the 3-foot green edge in his hand pointed toward the stone man. Originally, Duan Ling Tian had only said it casually, but when he struck the stone golem with his sword, he found that the outer skin that had appeared on the stone golem at some unknown point had blocked his sword. One must know that this sword strike of his was comparable to the full power attack of an ordinary peak stage martial cultivator in the medium saint realm. This familiar scene also left Duan Ling Tian dumbfounded. Previously, in the *** tower, the colossal statue had blocked his sword strike only by relying on the divine ability *** golden body. But this stone golem in front of him seemed to have blocked his sword strike simply with its body. How could he not be surprised by this? No. Soon, Duan Ling Tian discovered something was wrong again. When his gaze fell back on the stone golem, he found that the outer skin of the stone golem had begun to crack, and then, like a shedding skin, the outer layer turned into dust and scattered with the wind, as if it had never appeared. At the same time, Duan Ling Tian's divine sense clearly detected that the stone golem's aura suddenly weakened, as if it had nearly exhausted all its strength. That outer skin just now, it wasn't part of its body? Could it be also a divine ability? The scene before him was similar to what he had encountered on the top floor of the *** tower at that time. When he broke the colossal statue's *** golden body, the colossal statue's aura had weakened, and due to its depleted strength, he destroyed it. And the stone golem in front of him seemed to be the same. After its outer skin cracked and shattered, it also became depleted of strength. Bang! As Duan Ling Tian pushed out a palm, landing it on the approaching stone golem, the sun true essence surged into the stone golem's body as if it were free. In an instant, the stone golem trembled. Its already depleted strength was crushed, and its body began to be destroyed by the sun true essence. Finally, the stone golem once again turned into pieces of rubble. However, this time, after it turned into rubble, it spontaneously turned into scattered dust, carried by the wind, and finally settled peacefully within the rock sky hall. Dust to dust, ashes to ashes. This scene left Xiao Dun, who was floating in the air not far away, dumbfounded. Is that it? However, the next moment, Xiao Dun's expression changed again, because his released divine sense clearly detected the vibration of the void. After the stone golem was destroyed, the void seemed to begin to fluctuate again. That stone golem just now was already so abnormal. Could there be even harder trials later? At this thought, Xiao Dun's brows furrowed. It was fortunate that he had come with Duan Ling Tian today. Otherwise, even with a few more helpers, he probably wouldn't have been able to pass the stone golem's challenge, let alone the subsequent stages. The divine ability relic is about to appear. If I'm not mistaken, what's recorded inside should be a decent defensive divine ability. Just then, Duan Ling Tian spoke, his voice clearly reaching Xiao Dun's ears. The divine ability relic is about to appear? Defensive divine ability? Where? Just as Xiao Dun shivered and was about to look around, he also noticed that the fluctuating void seemed to crack open a seam. Immediately after, a huge stone tablet emerged from within, falling from the sky with a boom and standing on the ground of the rock sky hall. You go comprehend it. I'll wait for you. After saying a word to Xiao Dun, Duan Ling Tian sat cross-legged in the air nearby, closing his eyes to rest. "Thank you, senior brother Ling Tian." Taking a deep breath and slightly suppressing the excitement in his heart, Xiao Dun quickly thanked Duan Ling Tian. If it weren't for Duan Ling Tian today, even if he had clues to the Divine Ability Relic, he would certainly not have been able to access the Divine Ability Relic in the end. Even now, recalling the trials along the way, he still felt a lingering fear. It really is a defensive divine ability. Initially, Xiao Dun hadn't taken Duan Ling Tian's words to heart, because the divine ability relic hadn't even appeared yet, and logically no one would know what divine ability was recorded inside. But when he extended his divine sense into the stone tablet, he found that what was recorded inside was indeed a defensive divine ability. Rock Skywall. The divine ability recorded within the stone tablet was named Rock Sky Wall, and it was a defensive divine ability. To be honest, Xiao Dun was somewhat disappointed that what he obtained was a defensive divine ability. After all, in this world, spear and shield have always been in a very contradictory opposition. In the Dao Martial Saint Land, martial cultivators or Dao cultivators of the same cultivation level, if they cultivate attack and defense techniques of the same level, and the techniques have reached the same realm, the spear can generally break the shield, even if the process is a bit difficult. Therefore, Xiao Dun was more eager for an offensive divine ability. If only I had chosen the other divine ability relic. This thought, as soon as it arose, was suppressed by Xiao Dun himself. What am I thinking? If it weren't for senior brother Ling Tian's help, even if I knew where the divine ability relic was, I wouldn't be able to obtain the divine ability. Moreover, of the two divine ability relics, I was the one who chose first. Thinking of this, Xiao Dun himself blushed a little. Not to mention whether the divine ability recorded in the other divine ability relic would also be a defensive divine ability. Even if it wasn't, it would be what senior brother Ling Tian deserved. At this thought, Xiao Dun relaxed, and at the same time, he immersed himself wholeheartedly in the stone tablet that contained the divine ability. What a profound defensive divine ability. This defensive divine ability, even if it's not a high-grade divine ability, it should at least be a mid-grade divine ability, right? The more he delved into understanding the divine ability, Rock Sky Wall, the more shocked Xiao Dun became. From the description of Rock Sky Wall, it was absolutely impossible for it to be a low-grade divine ability. A day and a night later, Duan Ling Tian opened his eyes. Not finished yet, because he had memorized the entire content of the divine ability *** golden body within a day and a night. Duan Ling Tian thought Xiao Dun would also be able to memorize it within a day and a night, but he now found that he had thought too much. However, judging from the trials experienced in this divine ability relic, the defensive divine ability Xiao Dun obtained should be on the same level as ** golden body. Both are defensive divine abilities, which I don't really need. I wonder what kind of divine ability is recorded in the other divine ability relic, the one at the deepest part of that swamp. Unconsciously, Duan Ling Tian began to yearn for the divine ability relic within that swamp. I hope it's an offensive divine ability, Duan Ling Tian thought to himself. Currently, he already possessed a defensive divine ability like ** golden body, plus the speed-type divine ability, Wings of the Golden Crow, passed down to him by Old Hua. What he lacked was an offensive divine ability. They all say that a divine ability relic can only be comprehended by one person. I want to see if I can also comprehend it while Xiao Dun is comprehending. At this thought, out of curiosity, Duan Ling Tian extended his divine sense, approaching the stone tablet that contained the divine ability. However, before his divine sense even touched the stone tablet, it was blocked by a resistance emanating from the stone tablet, preventing his divine sense from getting close. It's actually repelling my divine sense. It seems that a single divine ability relic can indeed only be comprehended by one person. Seeing that Xiao Dun wouldn't finish comprehending so quickly, Duan Ling Tian closed his eyes again to rest, waiting patiently. Another 2 days and 2 nights passed, and after spending 3 days and 3 nights, Xiao Dun finally finished comprehending the divine ability relic. To be precise, he had memorized the divine ability recorded within the divine ability relic. At the same time, Duan Ling Tian and Xiao Dun's vision went dark, and when light reappeared, they found themselves back under the lake. Senior brother Ling Tian, let's go to the next divine ability relic. Xiao Dun did not go back on his word. After memorizing the divine ability relic, he led Duan Ling Tian towards the location of the next divine ability relic. Oh right, senior brother Ling Tian. Earlier, before the divine ability relic appeared, how did you know that what was recorded inside was a defensive divine ability? Xiao Dun looked at Duan Ling Tian and asked curiously. Because in the final challenge, that stone golem displayed a defensive divine ability. And I've challenged divine ability relics before, so I know that the trials in the final challenge usually feature the divine ability recorded in the current divine ability relic. Duan Ling Tian said. So that's how it is. Xiao Dun suddenly understood, and at the same time, he casually asked, Senior brother Ling Tian, what kind of divine ability did you obtain before? Same as you. It's a defensive divine ability. Duan Ling Tian replied. Also a defensive divine ability? Xiao Dun was startled at first, then smiled. Fortunately, senior brother Ling Tian didn't choose that divine ability relic just now. Otherwise, if both were defensive divine abilities, it would be a bit redundant and wasteful. That's not necessarily true. Regarding Xiao Dun's words, Duan Ling Tian remained noncommittal. Even if they are both defensive divine abilities, there are still differences in their quality. Furthermore, not all defensive divine abilities can be successfully comprehended 100%. The defensive divine ability you memorized might be even more suitable for me than the defensive divine ability I memorized before. Perhaps, in the future, I might have a chance to successfully comprehend the divine ability you memorized, while I might not be able to successfully comprehend the one I memorized myself. That's true, Xiao Dun nodded. He agreed with this point. Every divine ability had its own characteristics and could not be compared equally. The next divine ability relic was located in a desolate desert area. This desert, as far as the eye could see, was boundless. Due to the presence of sand and wind, once one got close to the ground, visibility would be obstructed. And the entrance to the other divine ability relic that Xiao Dun knew about was located here. Your friend is truly remarkable, to be able to discover even the divine ability relic hidden here. Duan Ling Tian exclaimed. Senior brother Ling Tian, if you continue forward for about 10 meters, you'll touch the formation and enter that divine ability relic. I won't follow you and hold you back. Having reached their destination, Xiao Dun said to Duan Ling Tian. Duan Ling Tian nodded, not saying much else, and walked straight ahead. Sure enough, after walking more than 10 meters, Duan Ling Tian's vision went dark, and then he disappeared from Xiao Dun's sight, appearing in a dim, swampy area. Without senior brother Ling Tian, the road ahead will be difficult. Watching Duan Ling Tian disappear from his sight, Xiao Dun inevitably felt a bit lost. But he also knew that the cooperation between him and Duan Ling Tian was merely a transaction. Now the trade is finished. The path ahead still depends on me to walk it. Xiao Dun sighed inwardly. With his strength, in the sacred martial secret realm, it truly was difficult at every step. He might be able to clear a low-grade divine ability relic alone, but he absolutely could not clear a middle or high-grade divine ability relic. Why am I thinking so much? Now that I've obtained a decent intermediate divine ability, this is already a huge surprise. With my current strength, if I'm still thinking about obtaining other divine abilities, that would be being too greedy. Thinking of this, Xiao Dun felt relieved, and a few smiles appeared on his face. He had figured it out. Senior brother Duan Ling Tian, you should also do your best. Taking one last look at the direction where Duan Ling Tian had vanished, Xiao Dun turned and left to be his lone wolf. Meanwhile, After Duan Lingtian entered the swamp and delved deeper, he was met with the first test. The first test was 4 savage beasts that crawled out from the swamp to block his path. These 4 savage beasts combined had strength equivalent to the 5 avian savage beasts at the entrance of the palace earlier. They were from the same group and coordinated well with each other. However, mere 4 peak minor Saint Realm savage beasts, even with good coordination, were no match for Duan Lingtian. Therefore, Duan Lingtian wiped them out with ease. Why is there no movement? After wiping out the 4 savage beasts, Duan Lingtian's divine sense extended in all directions, but he found no movement. One must know, whether it was the tower or the previous palace, after passing the first test, the gates would open to welcome him in to challenge the next level. As long as he cleared all the levels, he would be able to obtain the hidden divine ability relic within as he wished. But now, having wiped out the 4 savage beasts of the first test in this swamp, Duan Lingtian found that there was no movement around him. How was he supposed to challenge the subsequent levels and fight for the divine ability relic in this swamp? Just as Duan Lingtian was puzzled, his divine sense suddenly trembled. What is going on? Through his divine sense, Duan Lingtian detected subtle movements emanating from the surrounding swamp. The originally calm swamp was now churning rapidly, and the churning became increasingly violent, eventually resembling raging waves. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Just as Duan Lingtian watched the surrounding swamp with a grave expression, swift figures shot out from within, blotting out the sky like locusts, appearing on all sides of Duan Lingtian, surrounding him and blocking the light above his head. These savage beasts. At this moment, Duan Lingtian also discovered that the figures appearing around his body and even above his head were savage beasts. These savage beasts were identical to the 4 he had killed earlier: mid-stage minor Saint Realm, late-stage minor Saint Realm, peak minor Saint Realm, and early middle Saint Realm. After Duan Lingtian activated his heavenly eye vision and extended his divine sense to sweep over the surrounding savage beasts, he quickly discovered that the weakest among them were at the mid-stage minor Saint Realm, and the strongest were at the early middle Saint Realm. And there wasn't just one of the latter. There were exactly 9 early middle Saint Realm savage beasts. Looking at the surrounding savage beasts that were as numerous as locusts, Duan Lingtian saw at a glance that there were at least 1,000. What kind of savage beast is this? The group is so massive. Duan Lingtian realized that the savage beasts before him all came from the swamp beneath his feet, and the fact that he had killed those 4 savage beasts earlier was equivalent to angering this savage beast group. Could these savage beasts before me be the first test of this divine ability relic? Even Duan Lingtian didn't know why, but such a thought suddenly popped into his mind, and once it arose, it was hard to suppress. At the same time, Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up. If the savage beast group before him was truly the first test of this divine ability relic, did that mean that the divine ability recorded within this divine ability relic was even more powerful than the XX golden body he had obtained, and also more powerful than the divine ability Xiaodun had obtained? Thinking of this, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but be excited. As for the group of savage beasts before him, although numerous and of decent strength, in his eyes, they counted for nothing. However, why are they just staring at me without attacking? Seeing that the thousands of identical savage beasts around him hadn't made a move for a long time, it was now Duan Lingtian's turn to be confused, completely unaware of what this group of savage beasts was playing at. At this time, Duan Lingtian also had time to carefully examine the group of savage beasts before him. To be honest, although he had killed 4 such savage beasts earlier, he hadn't looked at them carefully. Now that he had time, he observed the characteristics of these savage beasts in detail. The savage beasts before him were a type of humanoid savage beast, with bloated bodies, a pair of fleshy wings on their backs, and thick skin covered in wrinkles, plus a large, thick head. Just looking at them made one feel very disgusted. Among the group of savage beasts, the 9 early middle Saint Realm ones were the largest, each about 5 meters tall. The weaker ones were only about 4 meters tall. The even weaker ones were shorter and smaller. Suddenly, Duan Lingtian's divine sense trembled, and he clearly detected a powerful aura appearing in the swamp behind him. The strength of this aura was even greater than that of the 9 early middle Saint Realm savage beasts. Tai Yin Sword Bell. Detecting that the aura seemed to have locked onto him and sensing the danger, Duan Lingtian immediately mobilized the solar true essence within his body. In an instant, streaks of golden sword light formed a layer of defense on his body, resembling the defense of a giant bell. Boom! And almost the moment the Tai Yin Sword Bell took form, a loud noise rang out, and the Tai Yin Sword Bell trembled violently. A massive figure had launched a sneak attack on Duan Lingtian from behind. However, although the sneak attack succeeded, it failed to break through the defense of the Tai Yin Sword Bell. At the same time, Duan Lingtian turned around and saw clearly what had attacked him. It was a massive savage beast nearly 10 meters tall. The appearance of this savage beast was identical to the thousands of savage beasts around him. However, on the head of this mountain-sized savage beast, it wore a golden crown, as if to highlight its extraordinary status. Woo, mfumph. At the same time, Duan Lingtian noticed that the thousands of savage beasts that had been quietly surrounding him were all looking at the crowned savage beast, calling out loudly with high-pitched voices, filled with awe. It seems he is the king of these savage beasts. If Duan Lingtian couldn't see this point now, then he had truly lived all these years in vain. Late Saint Realm. This savage beast king is actually in existence at the Late Saint Realm. If the group of savage beasts before me is truly the first test of this divine ability relic, the divine ability recorded in this divine ability relic must be a very high-grade divine ability. Of course, a high-grade divine ability also means that the subsequent levels will be very difficult. At first, Duan Lingtian was a bit excited, but thinking further, it was as if a basin of cold water had been poured over his head, and he sobered up quite a bit. The first introductory test was already this difficult. Would the subsequent levels be simple? The answer was clearly negative. Other matters, I won't think about for now. The urgent priority is to solve these troubles first. Soon, Duan Lingtian's attention returned to the group of savage beasts before him. This group of savage beasts had gathered together to surround him, and their king had even launched a sneak attack on him. They were clearly not here with good intentions. Just as Duan Lingtian thought, this group of savage beasts was indeed not here with good intentions. Awoo! Accompanied by an angry roar from the savage beast king, the thousands of savage beasts that had been watching the scene on the side immediately rushed towards Duan Lingtian with fierce glares, their momentum aggressive. With thousands of savage beasts rushing towards him, even though Duan Lingtian had seen many big scenes, he couldn't help but feel a tightening in his heart. Of course, this didn't mean Duan Lingtian was afraid of them. It was purely an instinctive reaction. Want to win by numbers? Facing the aggressively approaching savage beast group, a cold sneer suddenly appeared at the corner of Duan Lingtian's mouth. The next moment, the void realm within 100 meters radius centered on him fluctuated, eventually turning into a huge golden sphere of light that completely enveloped him. However, the group of savage beasts seemed fearless, charging straight into the myriad sword domain that Duan Lingtian had hastily erected. Swish, 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 swish. And within Duan Lingtian's myriad sword domain, tens of thousands of sword lights whistled past. The savage beasts that rushed in were killed instantly if they were weak. If they were strong, they lasted 3 or 2 moves before being killed. The even stronger ones could hold on for a while, but in the end, they still couldn't escape death. Soon, the 9 early middle Saint Realm savage beasts also rushed in. I've been waiting for you for a long time. From erecting the myriad sword domain until now, Duan Lingtian had merely watched coldly. using his intent to control the domain. Now, seeing the 9 early Middle Saint Realm savage beasts enter, he slightly raised his right hand. The next moment, without any visible movement, he vanished from where he stood. In the blink of an eye, he appeared again in the same spot. In contrast, those 9 early Middle Saint Realm savage beasts were now falling from the air one after another, completely lifeless. Once the 9 early Middle Saint Realm savage beasts died, the savage beast king outside the domain seemed to sense it, letting out a deafening roar, and then it also lunged into Duan Lingtian's domain. Discovering that their king was angry, the remaining savage beasts rushed into Duan Lingtian's domain as if they had been injected with chicken blood. It was a pity that what awaited them was destined to be annihilation. What? You still want to avenge them? Facing the mountain-sized savage beast king charging at him with red eyes, Duan Lingtian wore a mocking smile, then met it head-on, sword light radiating from his hand, as if the scorching sun were in the sky. The savage beast king at the late stage of the Middle Saint Realm did not possess divine ability defenses like the colossal statue and the stone man. Therefore, under Duan Lingtian's attack, which was comparable to the full power strike of a peak Middle Saint Realm martial cultivator, it was directly killed. Once the savage beast king died, the other savage beasts did not panic. Instead, they became even more frenzied. Even the surrounding swamp started to churn again, and hundreds of savage beasts shot out from it. Although fewer than before, there were still hundreds. The strongest among the hundreds of savage beasts that joined the Savage Beast Legion were only at the early stage of the Middle Saint Realm. Therefore, no matter how the savage beast lineup strengthened, it did not put any pressure on Duan Lingtian. They charged into Duan Lingtian's myriad sword domain one after another, like moths flying into a flame, regardless of life or death, as if only for that moment of brilliance and grandeur. As time passed, Duan Lingtian felt somewhat numb. Later, although he knew these savage beasts were images formed within an illusion formation and would directly vaporize upon death, Duan Lingtian was still shocked by their fearless courage. After that, he stopped attacking, letting the myriad sword domain slaughter the invading savage beasts. Duan Lingtian only let out a sigh of relief when the last savage beast died. And just as he hadn't fully exhaled, a voice abruptly came from all directions, clearly entering Duan Lingtian's ears. Little fellow, congratulations on passing the first checkpoint of the bottomless swamp. You will now face 8 more checkpoints. I'll be waiting for you at the last one. The voice was that of an old man, extremely ancient and profound. It made Duan Lingtian momentarily stunned, then excited. Neither the tower I previously entered nor the Six Halls Palace gave such a reminder from beginning to end. And that attack by the savage beast tribe just now was indeed the first checkpoint of this divine ability relic. This hidden location of the divine ability relic is called Bottomless Swamp. After taking a deep breath, Duan Lingtian slowly calmed his turbulent emotions. He had, after all, made some guesses earlier, but he wasn't sure if the previous savage beast tribe attack was the first checkpoint. Because if it was the first checkpoint, it also indicated that the divine ability recorded in this divine ability relic must be extraordinary, at least stronger than the Vajra golden body he obtained, and stronger than the rock sky wall Xiaodun obtained. And now, through the reminder from the ancient voice that seemed to come from all directions, Duan Lingtian also confirmed his thoughts. This divine ability relic must record an advanced divine ability. Originally, Duan Lingtian thought that the Vajra golden body he obtained was already an advanced divine ability, but now, upon comparison, Duan Lingtian realized that it should only be an intermediate divine ability. Everything is revealed through comparison. The difference in quality becomes clear. That voice just now reminded me that there are 8 more checkpoints. Where is this second checkpoint? As Duan Lingtian wondered, his extended divine sense clearly detected a disturbance in the void realm not far from him. When he shifted his gaze, he saw a crack appearing out of thin air in the turbulent void realm. Immediately after, a thick, ancient gate slowly emerged from the crack, appearing before Duan Lingtian. The gate opened, revealing a passage leading to an unknown destination. Passing the first trial, opening the gate. It's indeed similar to the 3 divine ability relics encountered before. However, the first trial of this divine ability relic is much more difficult. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. As for Xiao Dun saying that the first trial here and the first trial of the 6 Halls Palace are of similar difficulty, that's just his misunderstanding. He probably never dreamed that those 4 savage beasts were just a prelude to the first trial, and the true first trial would only appear after those 4 savage beasts were killed. Of course, Duan Lingtian also knew that Xiao Dun's misunderstanding was because Xiao Dun and his companion couldn't deal with those 4 savage beasts. Although those 4 savage beasts were fewer in number than the savage beasts in the first trial of the 6 Halls Palace, because they belonged to the same tribe and had excellent teamwork, their combined strength was not weaker than the 5 flying bird savage beasts at the entrance of the 6 Halls Palace. The latter, though appearing to act together, were actually a disorganized mess. Enter. With a thought, Duan Lingtian's figure moved, directly entering the thick and ancient gate. What would await him inside? Duan Lingtian was quite curious about this, but he knew that the subsequent checkpoints should not be simpler than the first one he had just experienced. Stepping through the gate, all he saw was darkness, until Duan Lingtian activated his solar true essence, making him glow like a blazing sun, radiating immense light. Only then did this dark space fully reveal its true appearance. This was a deep passage leading downwards. Duan Lingtian was currently standing on the passage. At first, the passage went straight, but after a few hundred meters, it began to curve. This passage is getting lower and lower. Is it trying to take me somewhere? Or perhaps, the end of the passage is where the next checkpoints are located. With this thought, Duan Lingtian's pace quickened. What would the second checkpoint be? He didn't know. Although the unknown is the most terrifying, the thought that the divine ability recorded in this divine ability relic was most likely an advanced divine ability immediately invigorated Duan Lingtian. Now, it's probably about 100 meters below ground, right? As time passed, Duan Lingtian felt as if the passage beneath his feet had no end. At first, it was fine, but later, he grew a bit impatient. Now, I've delved at least 300 meters underground, but it still hasn't reached the end. How long is this passage? Despite his impatience, Duan Lingtian did not give up and continued deeper. A day passed in a flash, over 1,000 meters deep. 2 days passed, 2,000 meters deep. 3 days passed, 3,000 meters deep. Is there no end to this? 3 days later, Duan Lingtian still hadn't exited the passage beneath his feet. For the first time, he stopped, no longer moving forward, but stood there, gritting his teeth and saying, "I refuse to believe it." As soon as his voice fell, Duan Lingtian's figure moved like a ghost, quickly accelerating. In just 1 day, he delved another 10,000 meters, yet still did not reach the end of the passage. This passage seemed to have no end. So that's how it is. Duan Lingtian, who had stopped again, no longer showed impatience as before. Instead, he revealed a meaningful smile. So, this is the second checkpoint. This illusion formation is truly ingenious. If I hadn't activated my Eerie half a day ago, I really wouldn't have realized that I've been walking the same path repeatedly. What 10,000 meters deep? I'm currently only 1,000 meters below ground. The feeling of being 10,000 meters deep is entirely due to the illusion formation at work within this passage. Because the features inside the passage had almost no significant differences, Duan Lingtian did not realize he was walking the same path repeatedly as he went downwards. However, when he activated his Eerie Eye and thoroughly understood the details and features within the passage, he discovered that he had indeed been walking the same path repeatedly. And the reason for this was, naturally, the illusion formation. This illusion formation should be the second checkpoint. Taking a deep breath, Duan Lingtian fully immersed himself in the omnipresent illusion formation before him. To break this illusion formation, one must find its formation base, or even better, its formation core. Therefore, as he continued to walk down the passage, Duan Lingtian's divine sense was fully released, probing everywhere without omission. At the same time, he pressed his entire body against the stone wall on one side of the passage, his solar true essence spreading out and merging into the stone wall. If he discovered anything hidden inside, his solar true essence would shatter and destroy it through the stone wall at the first opportunity. Of course, Duan Lingtian's Iri Eye wasn't idle either. His Iri Eye continuously operated, and his mental energy was constantly consumed. When it was depleted, he would stop, rest, and recover. Once recovered, he would continue. Just like that, 6 or 7 days passed. Heaven rewards the diligent. On the 7th day, Duan Lingtian finally discovered the first formation base hidden within the passage and immediately activated his solar true essence to destroy it. If it were the formation core, destroying it would naturally break the formation. However, if it's a formation base, unless it's a particularly important one, destroying just one might not be enough to break the formation. This was the situation Duan Lingtian was currently facing. However, having found the first formation base, Duan Lingtian was full of drive and quickly found the second formation base half a day later, destroying it once again. This formation base was clearly much more important than the previous one. Upon its destruction, a glimmer of dawn actually appeared at the distant, deep end of the passage. Although it was far away, Duan Lingtian still noticed it. Is that the exit? At this moment, Duan Lingtian also realized that he had broken the illusion formation. This kind of checkpoint truly wastes time. Although the second checkpoint involved no fighting, it had consumed Duan Lingtian's time for about 10 days. If he could choose, he would rather face a trial like the first checkpoint. The second checkpoint was mentally exhausting. Following the glimmer of dawn, Duan Lingtian walked out of the passage. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And the moment Duan Lingtian walked out of the passage, his mind suddenly trembled. He felt a sense of threat enveloping him, causing him to hastily activate the solar true essence within his body, transforming it into thousands of sword lights, forming the Tai Yin sword bell defense around his body. Boom, boom, boom. Almost at the instant the Tai Yin sword bell formed, Duan Lingtian's vision blurred, and he discovered waves of inexplicable power pouring down from above his head, coming with fierce momentum. 1.5 months had passed since they entered the Saint Martial Secret Realm. Within the Saint Martial Secret Realm, Xiankong Mansion disciples were continuously eliminated, but these eliminated disciples did not rush to leave. Instead, they waited outside with the others. They also wanted to gauge what others had gained. Additionally, they wanted to know how many people could stay in the Saint Martial Secret Realm for the full 3 months. Once someone stayed for 3 months, they would be directly sent out of the Saint Martial Secret Realm. Before then, they would not be sent out unless they died inside. The divine ability ruin I encountered was insane. 2 peak minor Saint Stage Martial Cultivators and 1 early medium Saint Stage Martial Cultivator couldn't even pass the 6th trial. The guardian beast of that trial was a mid-Saint Stage existence. When we realized we couldn't win, we tried to escape. The other 2 escaped, but I was a bit slow and was killed by that savage beast with a single slap. A Xiankong Mansion disciple spoke volubly, his face filled with a bitter smile and unwillingness as he finished. It seems the divine ability ruin you encountered had a similar difficulty level to mine. However, our small group was stronger than yours. Besides me being at the peak minor saint stage, the other 2 were at the early medium saint stage. We managed to pass the 6th trial by working together, but we were defeated at the 7th trial. Another Xiankong Mansion disciple said with a bitter smile. If I'm not mistaken, that should have been the final trial. The guardian of that trial was a late medium saint stage puppet. Although it wasn't as strong as a late medium saint stage martial or Dao cultivator, it was still not something two early medium saint stage martial cultivators could handle. A late medium saint stage puppet? Were you all wiped out? The former looked at the latter in surprise. No, they escaped, and I was killed. The latter's lips curved into a bitter smile. Then we truly are in the same boat. The former sighed with a bitter smile, then seemed to remember something. He looked at Qian Pingsheng, the Hall Master of Yellow Hall, who was not far away. Hall Master, the divine ability ruins we encountered had such difficult trials. The divine abilities recorded inside should be high-grade divine abilities, right? This Xian Kong Mansion disciple was indeed a Yellow Hall disciple. High-grade divine abilities? However, upon hearing his words, Qian Pingsheng shook his head. According to what you just said, the divine ability ruins you encountered should be medium-grade divine ability ruins. If they were high-grade divine ability ruins, even the first introductory trial would be impossible for you to pass. What? The Yellow Hall disciple gasped. A divine ability ruin with such difficult trials, and the divine abilities recorded inside are only medium-grade divine abilities? Can anyone even obtain high-grade divine abilities? At the same time, the gazes of the eliminated Xian Kong Mansion disciples all fell upon Qian Pingsheng. As for the high-grade divine abilities in our Saint Martial secret realm, not many people in the history of our Xian Kong Mansion have comprehended them. It is said that if one attempts the trials alone, it's impossible to challenge a high-grade divine ability ruin without a cultivation base above the late medium saint stage. Even a peak medium saint stage cultivator wouldn't dare say they're absolutely certain when facing a high-grade divine ability ruin. Qian Pingsheng said, "Of course, what I'm talking about here is attempting the trials alone. If multiple people work together, the cultivation requirement can be lowered slightly, but it won't drop below the mid-medium saint stage. In the history of our Xian Kong Mansion, the lowest overall cultivation to obtain a high-grade divine ability was a small group with 3 mid-medium saint stage martial cultivators. Of course, the reason they succeeded was because the high-grade divine ability ruin they encountered was a relatively lower-grade high-grade divine ability ruin. Within the Saint Martial secret realm, even high-grade divine ability ruins are divided into different tiers. Some high-grade divine ability ruins have never been cleared by anyone in the history of our Xian Kong Mansion." Qian Pingsheng continued, "Of course, the higher the tier of the high-grade divine ability ruin, the stronger the high-grade divine ability recorded within, and vice versa. High-grade divine ability ruins are also divided into different tiers." The Xian Kong Mansion disciples present suddenly understood, feeling that they had gained a lot of knowledge. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Just then, the vortex at the entrance of the Saint Martial secret realm trembled, attracting the attention of most people present. "Someone else is coming out," many Xian Kong Mansion disciples exclaimed. At the same time, a figure also emerged from the Saint Martial secret realm. Xiao Dun. As soon as the person appeared, a Earth Hall disciple went to greet him. "Why are you out?" At the same time, the 3 Xian Kong Mansion disciples from the Zhao family lineage, standing behind Zhao Deng, all revealed fierce glints in their eyes. They recognized him. This Xiao Dun was the person they had besieged in the Saint Martial secret realm. It was precisely because Ling Tian intervened that he was able to remain in the Saint Martial secret realm, and they were eliminated. Seeing Xiao Dun, they were reminded of the unbearable past half a month ago. "Weren't you saved by senior brother Ling Tian?" the Earth Hall disciple who went to meet Xiao Dun asked. This Earth Hall disciple was the one who was originally with Xiao Dun and was later eliminated by the 3 Xian Kong Mansion disciples from the Zhao family lineage. Both clues to the divine ability ruins that Xiao Dun knew about were found by him. "Yes," Xiao Dun nodded. "I was saved by senior brother Ling Tian. However, 10 days ago, after I took him to that divine ability ruin, we went our separate ways. But before that, with senior brother Ling Tian's help, I passed one of the divine ability ruins and obtained a divine ability." As he spoke, Xiao Dun's face was full of smiles. The Earth Hall disciple smiled upon hearing this. That's great news. However, looking at the Earth Hall disciple in front of him, Xiao Dun quickly sobered his smile. Brother Zhong, I gave one of the 2 divine ability ruin clues you found to senior brother Ling Tian. You won't blame me, will you? Of course not. I've already been eliminated. So those 2 divine ability ruins are naturally yours to dispose of. It's only right that you give the other divine ability ruin to senior brother Ling Tian, since he helped you obtain a divine ability. The Earth Hall disciple, Qin Zhong, shook his head and said, half a month had passed since he was eliminated, and his mindset had completely calmed down. What is meant to be yours will be yours. What is not meant to be yours, do not force it. He had come to terms with it. Because of this, when he learned that one of the divine abilities recorded in the 2 divine ability ruins he discovered belonged to Xiao Dun, he was genuinely happy for Xiao Dun from the bottom of his heart. Ling Tian, everyone present heard Xiao Dun's words. Qian Pingsheng, the Hall Master of Yellow Hall, immediately looked at Xiao Dun and asked, what divine ability did Ling Tian help you obtain? As soon as Qian Pingsheng spoke, most people's gazes fell upon Xiao Dun, including Zhu Luqi, the Hall Master of Heaven Hall. Xiao Dun could ignore the gazes of others, but he dared not ignore Zhu Luqi's gaze, because Zhu Luqi was the Hall Master of the Heaven Hall, which he belonged to, and whether he could gain the attention of this Heaven Hall Master was very important for him to do well in the Xiankong Mansion. The divine ability I obtained is called Rock Sky Wall. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Xiao Dun said, Rock Sky Wall. As soon as Xiao Dun said this, all the Vice Mansion Masters of Xiankong Mansion present were startled. Even Meng Qing, the Mansion Master of Xiankong Mansion, who was sitting cross-legged in the distance, opened his eyes at this moment and immediately looked at Xiao Dun. Perceiving Meng Qing's gaze, Xiao Dun's heart trembled, and he felt a great increase in pressure. Rock Sky Wall. Even among all medium-grade divine abilities, it is among the top. It is your fortune to obtain Rock Sky Wall. I hope you can successfully break through to the human saint stage in the future and comprehend and master this divine ability. Qian Pingsheng said to Xiao Dun. In the history of our Xiankong Mansion, although many people have obtained this divine ability, few of them have broken through to the human saint stage, and I haven't heard of anyone mastering this divine ability, let alone passing it down. Among the top medium-grade divine abilities? Hearing Qian Pingsheng's words, Xiao Dun's eyes lit up. He hadn't expected the defensive divine ability Rock Sky Wall that he obtained to be no ordinary medium-grade divine ability. Xiao Dun, congratulations. At the same time, several Heaven Hall disciples who had been eliminated congratulated Xiao Dun one after another. In the depths of their eyes, there was a mixture of envy, jealousy, and hatred. Any Xiankong Mansion disciple who obtained a divine ability ruin of medium grade or higher in the Saint Martial Secret Realm and remembered a divine ability of medium grade or higher would be specially cultivated by the Xiankong Mansion thereafter. It was precisely because of this that every Xiankong Mansion disciple who entered the Saint Martial Secret Realm was determined to obtain a divine ability ruin. However, before Xiao Dun, although some eliminated individuals had also comprehended divine abilities, the divine abilities they comprehended were only low-grade divine abilities. Congratulations, Xiao Dun. At this moment, Zhu Luqi, the Hall Master of Heaven Hall, also smiled as he looked at Xiao Dun. This Heaven Hall disciple, whom he hadn't paid much attention to in the past, now seemed more and more pleasing to his eyes. Thank you, Hall Master. Xiao Dun was somewhat overwhelmed by the unexpected favor. The disciples of the other 3 halls also showed envious, jealous, and hateful gazes when they looked at Xiao Dun. Zhao Deng and his son, as well as the other 3 Xiankong Mansion disciples from the Zhao family lineage, now had somewhat grim expressions. In their eyes, that divine ability should have belonged to their Zhao family lineage. Ling Tian. At this moment, whether it was Zhao Deng or Zhao Ji, their hatred for Duan Ling Tian deepened even further. Rock Skywall, if I remember correctly, you and Ling Tian entered the 6 Halls Palace. Zhu Luqi looked at Xiao Dun, and after his voice fell, he asked again, "You just said you gave the other divine ability ruin to Ling Tian. What were the characteristics of that divine ability ruin?" Evidently, Zhu Luqi also wanted to know what divine ability Duan Ling Tian would obtain. That divine ability ruin. After entering, a swamp appeared before our eyes. In the first trial, 4 ugly, ferocious savage beasts would emerge. Xiao Dun even specifically described the appearance of the savage beasts. Winged barbarian beasts. As soon as Xiao Dun finished describing the appearance of the 4 savage beasts, Zhu Luqi's pupils constricted, and Xian Pingxing couldn't help but exclaim, "Winged barbarian beasts." Meng Qing, the vice-mansion master of Xiankong Mansion, who was originally sitting cross-legged in the distance, immediately stood up after hearing Xiao Dun's narration. "Are you sure that in that divine ability relic, the first thing you see after entering is a swamp? Also, regarding the description of those 4 savage beasts, are you sure you didn't exaggerate?" Hall Master of the Heavenly Hall, Zhu Luqi, stared intently at Xiao Dun, confirming further. By now, Xiao Dun also noticed the atmosphere was a bit off, but facing Zhu Luqi's confirmation, he still nodded affirmatively. "I'm sure what I said is correct. Also, I went in with Brother Zheng back then. Brother Zheng can testify." After saying that, Xiao Dun looked at Qin Zheng, who was that Earth Hall disciple. Speaking of which, the 2 divine ability relics Xiao Dun knew about were both discovered by him, and he had also entered those 2 relics with Xiao Dun. It wasn't until they realized they couldn't even pass the first trial at the entrance that they fled, wanting to find partners. Who would have thought they would encounter 3 Xiankong Mansion disciples from the Zhao family lineage who took advantage of the situation to make an example of them? The 3 Zhao family lineage disciples even destroyed Qin Zheng's clone. As soon as Xiao Dun finished speaking, the gazes of the Xiankong Mansion high-level officials, including Mansion Master of Xiankong Mansion Meng Qing, all fell upon Qin Zheng, putting immense pressure on him. Qin Zheng didn't dare to be slow and immediately nodded in confirmation. "What Xiao Dun said is correct. It really is that place." After receiving confirmation, the high-level officials of Xiankong Mansion, including Mansion Master Meng Qing, shook their heads. Zhao Deng, as one of the vice-mansion masters of Xiankong Mansion, now also had a hint of schadenfreude in his eyes. "Hall Master, is something wrong?" Xiao Dun sensed the strange atmosphere and couldn't help but ask Zhu Luqi. "Nothing is wrong." Zhu Luqi shook his head. "The divine ability relic you mentioned has been encountered by many in our Xiankong Mansion's history. However, no one has ever been able to pass the first trial of that relic. In fact, very few have even escaped that relic alive." "What?" Hearing Zhu Luqi's words, many Xiankong Mansion disciples were pale with shock. Xiao Dun and Qin Zheng were also dumbfounded. They looked at each other, both seeing disbelief in the other's eyes. That divine ability relic. They had also attempted the first trial. It didn't seem that exaggerated, did it? "Hall Master, Brother Zheng, and I have also entered that relic. Isn't the first trial just 4 peak minor Saint Realm savage beasts? The difficulty is about the same as the first trial of the 6 Halls Palace, another relic I visited. Surely it's not to the point that no one in our mansion's history could pass it." Xiao Dun couldn't help but say. Qin Zheng also nodded. As an involved party, he agreed with Xiao Dun's statement. "The 4 savage beasts you mentioned are not the first trial of that relic. The first trial of that divine ability relic only truly begins after those 4 savage beasts are killed." Zhu Luqi shook his head and explained. "After killing those 4 savage beasts, thousands of savage beasts identical to them will swarm out from the surrounding swamp. It's a massive savage beast pack. There are more than a dozen at the Middle Saint Realm or above, especially their king, a late Saint Realm savage beast whose strength rivals the peak Middle Saint Realm. Looking only at their cultivation, they don't seem that strong, as there isn't even a peak Middle Saint Realm existence. But they are terrifying because of their numbers. Thousands of savage beasts, the weakest being in the Lesser Saint Realm, swarming from all directions. Unless one has the domain of a great Saint Realm expert or above, it's impossible to block them. In our Xiankong Mansion's history, there was once a small group consisting of one peak middle Saint Realm Dao cultivator, one late Saint Realm Martial cultivator, and 3 mid-stage middle Saint Realm Martial cultivators who entered that relic. In the end, they were completely wiped out. Under the onslaught of thousands of savage beasts, they only managed to kill over 100 before being annihilated. Zhu Luqi finished in one breath. Hiss, 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 hiss. As soon as Zhu Luqi finished speaking, the gathered Xiankong Mansion disciples all gasped in shock. Heavens, what kind of divine ability relic is that? The first trial is that perverted, too terrifying. Although Ling Tian's strength is great, he's only at the peak middle Saint Realm. Going in there, he's likely to face certain death. With Ling Tian's strength, he might be able to brave an ordinary high-grade divine ability relic. But this particular high-grade divine ability relic is clearly not something he can handle. Such a terrifying high-grade divine ability relic. How fearsome must the divine ability recorded within be? Just thinking about it is shocking. It's certain that the divine ability recorded in that relic is definitely not simple. But no matter how extraordinary it is, no one can obtain it. Yeah, it's too difficult. After the Xiankong Mansion disciples snapped out of it, they discussed fervently, none of them believing Duan Lingtian could pass the first trial of that relic. A rare smile played on the corner of Zhao Ji's mouth, a smile of schadenfreude. Those 4 savage beasts were just the prelude to opening the first trial of that relic. After hearing Zhu Luqi's words, Xiao Dun also couldn't help but gasp, then exchanged a look with Qin Zheng, both seeing shock and horror in each other's eyes. They never dreamed that what they saw as an intermediate divine ability relic would actually be such a terrifying high-grade divine ability relic. In that case, isn't senior brother Ling Tian in great danger? Thinking of Duan Ling Tian, Xiao Dun's expression changed drastically, and he felt guilty in his heart. If he had known earlier that the relic was so dangerous, he certainly wouldn't have brought Duan Ling Tian there. After all, Duan Ling Tian was his benefactor, and he wasn't the kind of person to bite the hand that feeds him. When did Ling Tian enter that divine ability relic? Zhu Luqi looked at Xiao Dun and asked with a solemn expression. At this moment, he also couldn't help but worry about Duan Lingtian's safety. After all, that divine ability relic was absolutely the #1 forbidden land of the sacred martial secret realm in the history of Xiankong Mansion, making people pale just hearing about it. And the most outstanding disciple of their heavenly hall, and even the entire younger generation of Xiankong Mansion, Ling Tian, had actually charged in there without knowing. How could he not be worried? One must know that Ling Tian's gains within the sacred martial secret realm were of vital importance to Xiankong Mansion. With Ling Tian's talent, as long as he didn't die prematurely, he would surely break through to the human saint realm in the future. Furthermore, the probability of him being able to comprehend and master a divine ability obtained from the sacred martial secret realm was also greater than others. Because of this, he didn't want Duan Lingtian to be eliminated so early. About 10 days ago, Xiao Dun pondered for a moment and said, 10 days ago? Hearing Xiao Dun's words, Gu Li, who had been standing quietly to the side, couldn't help but sigh in relief. He entered that relic 10 days ago and hasn't come out yet. Junior brother Ling Tian should have turned his misfortune into a blessing. Gu Li's thought was also the thought of most people. It seems Ling Tian has escaped. Yeah, after 10 days, he hasn't been eliminated yet, so he must have escaped and left that relic. Although the divine ability in that relic is good, with Ling Tian's strength, it's impossible for him to obtain it. Many Xiankong Mansion disciples discussed amongst themselves, all feeling that Duan Lingtian should have survived the siege of the savage beast pack and left that relic. Earlier, Xiao Dun was also blinded by concern, but now that he had calmed down, he also sighed in relief. It's been 10 days since senior brother Ling Tian hasn't come out. He should have left that relic. I hope he doesn't think I intentionally harmed him. Thinking of that, Xiao Dun wore a bitter smile. 10 days, and he hasn't been eliminated yet. Zhao Deng's face was dark. Having entered that relic for 10 days without being eliminated, he had clearly escaped alive. At this moment, the schadenfreude smile on Zhao Ji's lips also froze. From beginning to end, including Mansion Master of Xin Kong Mansion Meng Qing, no one felt that Duan Lingtian could pass the first trial of that relic, let alone obtain the divine ability within. According to the history of Xin Kong Mansion, the relic Duan Lingtian entered was the #1 forbidden land within the sacred martial secret realm, and the divine ability recorded within was also acknowledged by the ancestors in Xin Kong Mansion's history as the #1 divine ability among the many divine abilities in the sacred martial secret realm. That Ling Tian's luck is quite good to have actually entered the #1 divine ability relic within the sacred martial secret realm. However, with only a peak middle saint realm cultivation, it's simply impossible to pass the first trial of that relic, let alone obtain that #1 divine ability. Although Ku Mi was from Qingyun Mansion, he had also heard of the #1 divine ability in Xin Kong Mansion's sacred martial secret realm. Even in their Qingyun Mansion's sacred martial secret realm, there was no divine ability relic that could compare to that one in the Xin Kong Mansion's sacred martial secret realm. Of course, whether it was Qingyun Mansion or the Yinshan Black Market. Although they knew that relic in the Xin Kong Mansion's sacred martial secret realm was extraordinary, they never felt any greed, because they knew that in the Dao Wu sacred land lower domain, it was impossible for someone to appear who could obtain the divine ability from that relic. Duan Lingtian naturally didn't know what was happening outside. He knew even less that the divine ability relic he was currently in was actually the acknowledged #1 forbidden land and the #1 divine ability relic in the history of the sacred martial secret realm. This relic was also the nightmare of the outstanding younger generation in the history of Xin Kong Mansion. No one had ever been able to pass the first trial of this relic, let alone obtain the divine ability within. Duan Lingtian didn't know what was happening outside, and the people outside similarly didn't know what was happening inside. They knew even less that Duan Lingtian had already passed the first and second trials of that terrifying relic, successfully exiting the passage of the second trial and entering the location of the third trial. Boom, 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 boom. Duan Lingtian, supported by the Tai Yin sword bell, passed through the range of the terrifying power that swept down like a waterfall and successfully stepped onto the flat ground ahead.